There's a wound so deep that most people never even realize it's there. A wound that doesn't bleed, a wound that doesn't scream, a wound that doesn't leave visible scars. It's the wound of believing that you were the problem, that you were too much, that you were not enough, that somehow by simply existing, you had already failed. Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human soul, understood something that modern society still struggles to accept. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. You didn't create the dysfunction. You didn't cause the silence, the anger, the absence. You didn't deserve the love that was withheld. But as a child, you didn't have the wisdom to know that. Children don't blame the environment. They blame themselves. If the parent is cold, the child thinks I must be unlovable. If the teacher is cruel, the child thinks I must be stupid. If friends reject them, the child thinks I must be wrong. And so, without knowing it, you began to carry shame that was never yours to carry. You began to build a false self, a mask stitched together from the expectations, wounds, and projections of others. You learned to smile when you wanted to cry. You learned to be silent when you wanted to scream. You learned to be easy, good, perfect when you were aching just to be real. And now, perhaps, you wonder, why do I feel like I am not enough no matter how much I achieve? Why do I fear rejection even from people I don't respect? Why do I sabotage my own happiness when it finally arrives? The answer isn't because you're broken. The answer is because you were trained to believe that your natural self was somehow wrong. But today, right now, that lie begins to fall away. Because the truth is this: you were never the problem. You were always whole. You were always enough. You were simply shaped by a world too wounded to recognize your light. And now you're ready to come home to yourself, not by fixing something broken, but by remembering what was always true. This journey won't be easy. It will require honesty, courage, and tenderness. But on the other side of it is freedom. Freedom to exist, freedom to love, freedom to be without apology. So let's begin. Let's go back to where it all started. And let's bring you back to yourself. Early conditioning and the creation of the false self. When you were born, you didn't have an image to uphold. You cried when you were hurt. You laughed when you were joyful. You reached out when you needed love. You were pure, unfiltered, alive. But purity is vulnerable. And in an imperfect world, vulnerability often meets misunderstanding or worse, punishment. Carl Jung taught that very early on. We learn a brutal but necessary lesson. Authenticity is not always safe. Express sadness, and you're told to toughen up. Show anger, and you're called bad. Dream too big, and you're mocked for being unrealistic. Shine too brightly, and you're accused of showing off. And so, piece by piece, you learn to hide yourself. The authentic self, the wild, radiant feeling, dreaming you were slowly covered by a false self. The false self isn't evil. It's a survival strategy. It's the version of you that knew, if I stay quiet, they won't get angry. If I achieve, they will love me. If I don't make waves, I'll be accepted. You became an expert at reading the room, at adjusting your tone, your posture, your opinions, your dreams. You didn't betray yourself because you were weak. You betrayed yourself because you were wise. Because belonging at that time was more important than truth. As Jung would say, the healthy man does not torture others generally. It is the tortured who turn into torturers. The adults around you weren't evil. Most were simply unconscious, passing down their own pain like an unwanted inheritance. And so you adapted. You played roles, you wore masks. You learned to perform connection rather than experience it. You learned to seek approval instead of living authenticity. You learned to fear your own soul. Because if your real self was punished, then maybe it was safer never to show it again. But here's the secret Jung uncovered. The self can never be destroyed. It can be buried. It can be silenced. It can be exiled. But it waits patiently, lovingly, waiting for the moment when you are ready to come home, to remember that your value was never conditional. Your worth was never up for debate. Your soul was never broken. You simply lived through environments too wounded to reflect your beauty back to you. And now you have the power to end the cycle, not by becoming someone new, but by remembering who you were before you forgot. The false self was brilliant, it kept you alive, but it's time to retire it now. It's time to reclaim your truth. It's time to stop surviving and start living. How shame was programmed into you. Shame is one of the heaviest burdens a soul can carry, and the tragedy is, most of the shame you carry was never yours to begin with. Carl Jung understood that shame is not born inside us. It's implanted, transferred, inherited from those who could not carry their own pain. You weren't born thinking you were too much. You weren't born believing you were not enough. You learned it. You learned it when your tears were met with anger instead of comfort. You learned it when your dreams were laughed at instead of nurtured. You learned it when your needs were treated as inconveniences, not sacred invitations. Every unspoken message you received became a whisper inside your mind. I am too emotional. I am a burden. I am stupid. I am bad. And slowly, invisibly, these whispers became beliefs. Beliefs that shaped your relationships, your ambitions, your very sense of self. Shame does not scream. It poisons quietly. It tells you to settle for less because you don't deserve more. It tells you to stay silent because your truth doesn't matter. It tells you to keep performing, pleasing, perfecting because who you are isn't enough. But Carl Jung showed us that shame is not a moral compass. It's a trauma echo. It's the residue of environments that could not hold you with love. When children are hurt, they do not say, "My caregivers failed to love me properly." They say, "I must be unlovable." Because blaming yourself feels safer than realizing you are at the mercy of others. Because hoping to fix yourself feels safer than confronting the unbearable truth. That sometimes love was withheld for reasons that had nothing to do with you. And so the cycle begins. You hustle for worthiness, you perform for belonging. You self-erase to survive, but the shame never dissolves. Because it was never yours to heal in the first place. You are carrying someone else's inability to love, to nurture, to see. And here's the most important truth Jung offers. Shame dies in the light. The moment you see it, name it, refuse to wear it anymore. It loses its power. You are not too much. You are not enough. You are not broken. You are whole. You are worthy. You are and have always been enough. Not because you earned it, but because you exist. You don't have to carry shame any longer. You can put it down. You can walk forward lighter, freer, truer. Because the shame that shaped you was never yours. And now you see. If this content is making sense to you, then click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Signs you're still carrying the wound. The past doesn't vanish just because time moves forward. Unhealed wounds don't disappear. They adapt, they camouflage. They influence every part of your life quietly, invisibly, powerfully. Carl Jung taught that whatever remains, unconscious, rules our lives without us knowing. You may not remember every slight, every dismissal, every silent rejection from your past, but your nervous system does. Your heart does, your behavior does. Here's how the invisible wounds show up today. 1. Chronic overthinking. You replay conversations in your mind. You analyze every word, every gesture. Because deep down, you're scanning for signs of rejection before it can hurt you again. 2. Fear of setting boundaries. You say yes when you mean no. You tolerate disrespect. Because somewhere inside, you believe that asserting yourself risks losing love. 3. People-pleasing and approval addiction. You measure your worth by how others react to you. You feel a surge of anxiety when someone disapproves, even a stranger. Because deep down, love always felt conditional. 4. Self-sabotage when things go well. You pull away from success. You downplay your achievements because somewhere inside, you still believe you're not really worthy of good things. 5. Emotional numbness or hyperreactivity. You either feel too little or too much. You numb out because feeling feels dangerous. Or you explode because small triggers tap ancient wounds. These patterns are not character flaws. They are survival adaptations. They are the intelligent, brilliant ways a younger version of you tried to stay safe in a world that felt unsafe. But you are not that child anymore, and you do not have to live inside those patterns anymore. Awareness is liberation. Each time you recognize a pattern without shaming yourself for it, you loosen its grip. You return a piece of your power. Healing doesn't mean you'll never get triggered. It means the triggers no longer drive your life. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of obey old fear. You root yourself in truth, not trauma. And the more you see clearly, lovingly, the more you reclaim yourself. Piece by piece, choice by choice, moment by sacred moment. Healing the inner child and self-reclamation. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past, it means integrating it. Understanding it. Loving the parts of you that were never loved properly. Carl Jung taught that the path to wholeness isn't through perfection, it's through integration. You don't become whole by amputating your pain. You become whole by embracing it with eyes wide open. And at the heart of this journey is the inner child. Who is the inner child? The inner child is not some abstract concept. It's the living memory of the you that existed before you were taught to be afraid of yourself. It's the part of you that still longs for unconditional love, craves creative expression, feels pure wonder and excitement, trembles at the thought of rejection. When your inner child is wounded, you live your adult life chasing approval, recreating abandonment, hiding your deepest dreams. But when you reconnect with your inner child, when you hear them, see them, hold them, you liberate energy that's been trapped for decades. How to begin healing the inner child? It starts with one radical act, believing that your younger self deserved better, even if the world didn't give it, even if no one apologized, even if the hurt wasn't that bad compared to others. Your pain is valid because your heart was real. You can begin today by writing letters right to the child you were. Tell them what they deserved to hear back then. Tell them they are loved, seen, protected now. Inner dialogues, when you feel triggered, pause and ask, what does my younger self need from me right now? Protection, comfort, reassurance. Visualizations, picture yourself as a child. Imagine sitting beside them. What would you say to them? What would you promise? You are no longer powerless. You are no longer voiceless. You are the protector, the nurturer, the guardian you always needed. And as you parent your inner child, you liberate your adult self. You stop reacting to old fears. You stop living from old wounds. You start choosing based on present truth, not past trauma. Self-reclamation, choosing yourself again. Reclamation is not about becoming someone new. It's about shedding everything that isn't authentically you. You begin to speak your truth even when your voice shakes. Set boundaries even when it terrifies you. Pursue dreams, even if others don't understand. Love yourself even when you feel imperfect. Each act of reclamation says, I choose me, not because I am perfect, but because I am worthy by existence alone. This is individuation. This is sovereignty. This is wholeness. And the world you create from this space, a life not based on fear but on freedom, will be your greatest gift to yourself. So here you are, not broken, not defective, not shameful, just unfinished. Unfolding, becoming. You were never the problem. The problem was the world that didn't know how to hold you. The people who couldn't see you through their own shadows. The systems that taught you your worth was conditional. But their blindness does not define your vision. Their pain does not define your joy. Their limits do not define your soul. You do. You define yourself now, not by what happened to you, but by what you choose to become. You reclaim the parts you exiled. You listen to the child who still hopes. You protect the dreams you once buried. You are not here to perform. You are not here to apologize. You are not here to dim your light to make others comfortable. You are here to live fiercely, fully, authentically. And as you walk this path, you will still stumble. You will still get triggered. You will still face moments of doubt. That's not failure, that's life. And every time you choose compassion over self-punishment, every time you choose authenticity over approval, every time you choose love over fear, you come home to yourself, to your truth, to the wholeness that was always waiting for you beneath the noise. You were never the problem. You were the miracle all along. And this is just the beginning. Because now that you remember your worth, it's time to protect it. It's time to learn how to stay rooted in your truth, even when the world tries to shake you. In our next video, we dive into the timeless wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, how to stop taking everything personally. You'll learn how to stay calm when criticized, strong when rejected, centered when misunderstood. Because when you stop taking the world personally, you become truly unstoppable. Keep watching. Depthoria is just beginning.